Oh, is he broadcasting on Facebook as well?
Oh, did it?
No, I'm asking. Is that
Oh,
what you?
I didn't set it up.
Okay. Because I just learned that that's how some people have been doing it. I swear to God, I've been finding out so much stuff about Zoom, and I'm like, by the end of this, I'm going to be a Zoom expert. I'm going to get my certification in Zoom.
I think all of us will.
I've been training courses, taking clients on Saturdays.
I was kind of like trying to avoid it for a long time. I'm like, maybe COVID will end. And I was like, no, we have to.
No, I did that too. I was like, yeah, not happening. Oh man, so good.
Oops. I meant to do that privately.
I had no idea that you can do the meeting without seeing the people. Like
yeah,
all the people.
But it's just, you have to register it as a webinar. So it's different than actually.
I'll have to ask people what they were wearing tonight.
I was like, you don't have to, like, don't worry about it.
Darn it. It's been a long time since I've seen some outfits.
I think the first few weeks I would literally just take my robe constantly, and it would be like, "Are you there?" If you'd be like, "Oh yes, I'm there." And then I'll work, and then it'd just be like, "So how's everybody did today?" I'm like, "Well, technically, I just rolled out of bed. I still got my headscarf on. My husband don't care. I don't care. So I'm walking." So yeah, now I'm dressed, and I'm like, okay, we're returning back to normal. You have to know what your jeans feels like. Do you even know where your jeans are? And I'm like,
I know. I saw someone in jeans the other day, and I was very I admired their courage.
I was
like wow.
Long ago, I was just like, man, I'm so I'm not ready for that yet just yet. So I'm like,
yeah,
feels like forever. Oh well, soon. I also heard some people were doing some clearance in the cupboard so they can give away some clothes because nobody wanted to go straight into like shopping or and buy things that they don't necessarily need. And I was like, oh, that's super good. But that was like mostly for, I think they're doing a donation, taking sort of donation for Dress for Success, like women that they tend to support. So I was like, oh, that's good that they can still accept that because a lot of people have been coming forward and saying that they needed certain types of clothes and things like that. So,
right.
And they're going to start that again. So I'm like, oh, that's really nice. They can still be creative. Good times.
Okay. So we'll just wait a few more minutes because I don't see everyone in. But hi, everyone that's there. I know that we can't see you, but you can see us. So we're just going to wait a little bit more because there's we're supposed to be about like around 80 people coming today. So I'm just going to wait a little bit so everyone joins. But I will say that at the bottom part, there's a Q&A option or a chat option. So if you find during the conversation that you would like to ask us questions, either directed to anyone that's on the panel or to me, or just a general question, that option is for you there. And Palesa, who's there, she's just going to kind of go through the questions and filter them through. If you find some are repetitive, that's maybe why your question didn't get answered. So just so you're aware.
Hi, Monica.
Hi.
The Zoom I went to yesterday, I knew that I didn't want to be seen, so I had the video off, and the person who was hosting it said, "Hope to see you tonight," and they wrote it in quotations. And I was like, no, not tonight. I will be on audio.
Oh, can everyone smile and wave? She can take a screenshot.
Oh my gosh, hang on one second. I was just responding to Monica. Let me just.
Okay.
I just right side.
I was just about to take a screenshot for us too. Oh, well, on my phone, but.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Yes. Okay, I think she got it.
Okay.
I'm like, how long am I gonna go for? And to my arms are tired. Good times.
Okay, let me see. Not sure how long to wait for people, but maybe a few more minutes.
Courtney.
Okay. Well, we can start, and then people just kind of have to trickle in. So once again, I just want to let everyone know that this is a webinar, not an actual meeting. And so you'll only see us, so me as the host and the panelists. Later on, when we have the question answer, I might open it up for people who have questions and things like that in terms of video, but it's just easier to control when it's a webinar versus when it's a meeting. In terms of meeting, I'm meeting people, and so that's why. So go into the question answer at the bottom or the chat to kind of engage with each other, ask us questions, and we'll be doing a question answer part at the bottom. So hopefully that makes sense. So just welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us in our virtual Women in Leadership. We really wanted to do it in person in March, but you know, I guess the circumstances happened, but we figured out a way how to kind of still be together. And so that's really exciting for us. So my name is Nadia Stewart, and I'm the founder of Black Women Connect Vancouver. And so I'm really excited to have everyone here and the panelists that came to join. They're all amazing women from everything that they've accomplished, and I just think that they'll have great things to say tonight. So on Black Women Connect Vancouver, so there's me, there's Halessa, who's going to be doing the questions, and she's our project manager. We have Tasha, who she does a lot of like the background things and like our financials and just coordinating so much of things that you wouldn't even think she's doing. And so we have Elle, who's our volunteer coordinator. So anytime there's events, she's the one that's reaching out to you. And we have Aria, and she is our creative director. So any of the photo shoots that you've seen, some of our social media, that's all of her creative direction. And so that's who makes up the team of Black Women Connect Vancouver. And so I wanted to introduce you to them because they're not on the actual call, but I want to make sure that you know that there's always a team behind this and the things that go behind all of this. So I'm going to get the panelists to introduce themselves. Who are you? What do you do? And what do you think about women in leadership, and why is this important? So I will get Nadia to start.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Nadia Stewart. I am a journalist with Global News. I have been there now for 5.5 years, but have been in the media industry for the last 16 years, traveling across the country. I was born and raised in Toronto, and moved out to Newfoundland, all the way on the East Coast, to work for the CBC. From Newfoundland, I went to Edmonton. From Edmonton, went to Calgary. From Calgary, went back to Ontario briefly to work for CTV. And then from there, came out here to BC. So really been hopping around the country for a number of years, but happy to have settled here and married here. So this is really home now. And so, and it's been kind of just, you know, quite the experience. Being a Black woman in news. If you watch news, then you know that there aren't a lot of Black women in news in Canada. And so that has been, I say an interesting, and it's been an interesting journey for me. And an experience that I had in Newfoundland really made me want to reach out and be part of a larger network of Black journalists. And that is how I became part of the Canadian Association of Black Journalists, now the executive director of the association, after having relaunched it. When I came to the organization, it was dormant. And so we assembled a team, relaunched the organization in February 2018, and now we're doing all kinds of programming, reaching out to a new generation of young journalists. And it could not have come at a better time, given everything that we're facing. Black journalists are on the front lines reporting on the same issues that they are dealing with when they're not on camera. And so it is, it's an interesting time, a challenging time to be a Black journalist. I feel like my capacity is stretched every day. And leading this organization has been no exception. Have an amazing team that I have the privilege of working with, and they're spread out across the country. And so it's been quite the experience. And I think you wanted me to answer a question about leadership. Is that right, Natasha?
Yes, I think you kind of answered it with what you're dealing with at work and how leadership is kind of hard during this time of journalism.
Yes,
so,
it's definitely been a challenge. But I'm happy to talk more about that. I'm excited to hear from the other women on the panel. So just happy to be here and happy to share.
Perfect. Thank you. And so Lilian.
Well, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you, because the work that you're doing is incredible, and it's. I mean, we all feel it, and I think in the last week or so, it's just been it's been a career that we count on so deeply and that we admire. So, thank you for all the work that you're doing, and the leadership that you have in that field as well. So my name is Lilian Umurungi-Jung. I probably have the silliest career out of everyone. So I have a plant-based snack food company called Mumgree, and I'm a mother. And the whole concept of my brand was created with the mother diet and with mothers in mind. And so I pretty much spend a lot of time creating delicious, nutritious snacks that are made using wholesome goods. And I would say that, one of the challenging parts about my role is that it's just so unique. Like I ran my Googles and I checked, and my brother tells me all the time that I am the first Black snack owner in Canada. And he's like, you have nothing to compare it to. But it's just, it's a field where I don't have as many people to look up to. And so for a lot of my sort of journey, I find myself picking away at different types of leaders in other different fields and trying to figure out how it applies to the food business. So that is my role, and that is my leadership.
Wow.
Thank you. And next, Efe, how do I say your name right?
Efe. You did.
I know.
No, don't worry. You will be the first to actually say it the other way today. I'm getting used to it. But yeah, just to kind of actually just go with Lilian. This is so good. What you're doing, definitely, Nadia, I think it's amazing. And your job is not the most silliest of them all, Nadia. Trust me. I think what you're doing is really important, because kids need those, and the world needs to have better food, and we need to find a way to make it a normal thing that people can actually afford. So good on you for doing it. I'm sure all of us already know this is not an easy journey, but I'm glad to be working, in this world with you guys, knowing that you're doing your part to make it a better place for our generation and next. But my name is Efe Fruci. The married name comes with the Fruci. My Nigerian name is super long that I was so grateful when I finally thought, oh, now I have a shorter version. Perfect. It finally came from 7 to 2. So this has been a grateful journey. I'm like, thank you, Lord. I am a motivational coach, an author, and a speaker. And I am also a woman in STEM with a background in science. I started off as a biomedical scientist back in Oxford in the UK, and worked my way up into the technology industry, splitting my time 50% of the time in tech as well as 50% in the lab. And over the years sort of actually stepped back slightly, after working in a lab for cancer patient or cancer treatment, producing drugs for acute lymphoblastic leukemia for children who struggle with that illness, all the way to the age of 25, as well as helping patients with Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's. So I've had my fair share of trying to research the best things. I went into that trying to see if I could cure my own, one of my brother's illness as a child. And I found out what the cause was, but we were happy that we knew what the cause was. But for me, I think my passion for it sort of stirred a little bit. And, but over the years, I've actually nurtured it, and I'm still currently nurturing it within my current role right now at Accenture. But at the same time, working full time as a woman in STEM, I also run my business where I coach and teach women how to become self-motivated, how to be confident, and how to help them change the narrative, because that for me is the absolute key, that they should understand that it is possible, because the life that I was planned, though the life that was planned for me wasn't the same life that I am currently living right now. So I had to fight endlessly to be in this place that I am right now, because this is exactly where the younger Effie always dreamed of being. So it is possible to change the narrative, especially as Black women. We have the odds against us to tell us it's not possible, and shows us that it would be a difficult road. Yes, that is true. There's a lot of self-work that goes into that, but nonetheless, it is possible. And leadership means so much to me, because I've seen so many women in leadership who have paved the way, and that's what it's all about, making sure that everybody's voices are heard and nobody is left unseen, and everyone's passion and talents and voice are all nourished, so they can feel empowered and they can feel strong and they can feel as part of society and be able to take their dreams and their vision to the next level. And Black, Women Connect Vancouver, I think it's a beautiful example of women in leadership. It has incredible women that, Seema just said, and seeing that, it's just, it's a beautiful example. And I'm super grateful to be here and have this conversation with you guys and see where we can all be our best self and go out there into the world stronger and more empowered. So
thank you for sharing. That's great. Thank you for being here. I'm honored to have you here and to be able to share your stories and your background. So I'm excited to just hear more details of the things that you've all gone through and accomplished. So the first thing we're going to start talking about is the work-life balance and stress management. So how do we maintain good work-life balance? I think we all struggle with that. And I think even just this week, kind of like just our mental health and things like that, and just have an influx of information thrown at us and trying to carry that, meanwhile trying to work and trying to do handle family situations and things like that. So how do you find the balance of being productive versus being busy? So if some of you have like a main job and then you have a side hustle and then you have something else you're on a board of or things like that, how do you manage that time to make sure that, okay, I'm not just working just to work, but I'm actually being productive in my work? And I'll get all of you to answer this question, actually.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one, and it's a hard one as well, because I think for me, it's something that you got to ask yourself at the start of your day. And it's something that I've said multiple times, I think, especially in the past couple of months, like, what do you want to achieve? Like waking up in the morning, asking yourself, what do I want to achieve that in that day? Like even on Saturday when you're not working, what do you want to do? Because your time is so precious. And it's truly a currency that nothing, like a commodity that no currency can buy. You can't buy time. So when it's gone, it's gone. So you got to wake up with an intention and set yourself up for success, right? For me, for many years, it was such a struggle that I was always told that I can't do my business that I've currently been doing for the past 9 years, that I couldn't do it as a student, I couldn't do it as a full-time worker. But it was about their own limits and what they saw. But for me, I already knew what I wanted it to be like. I knew what the purpose of it was like, and I knew exactly what the challenges was going to be like. So that didn't make the stress easier. It just made me plan better, like manage my time, understood exactly what needed more focus, what was a priority and what wasn't a priority, because those things are so important, not to actually mix the line together. And you don't mix the line together by actually making sure that you know what is important in your day and what isn't key. If you're working full time, for me, for example, at Accenture, my hours are 9 to 5 technically, but I have the freedom, which is amazing, that I get to find this beautiful company who accepts what I do and accept me as who I am. So they allow me to walk outside of that realm and say, if you want to do your work at 7 o'clock to 10, it's entirely up to you. As long as you're taking a personal time to enjoy your 1 hour off. You know, that's your break. Whenever you want to do it, you do it. So I have that freedom and that flexibility to some extent. So if there is some days of my work that isn't going as crazy or isn't busy, I end up spending some of those time being split apart and actually doing my business work and seeing clients, writing my courses, creating, you know, new training materials, things like that. So that way, when I actually then finish all of that, my brain for what I want to put and invest into my business is complete. I go back and open the laptop for a center and say, okay, this is now time for me to really focus, because at that point, something is already piled up, my email's pouring, right? Or I actually now have something that I want to do while I'm focused for that particular job, you know, job or task. So it's kind of actually, I find my balance that way. I make sure that I don't overwhelm myself. That's very important, that you don't put too much pressure, or otherwise it blurs the whole line. And before you know it, in my case, I just literally just spiral the whole day and I get emotional and everything is just like, whew. And my husband comes in and be like, you sure you're okay? And I'm like, great, awesome. Just give me a second, 30 minutes with my music, and then recalibrate. But it's very important to realize what is important and what is not. And that's when you have to be honest with yourself and just say, hey, am I really being productive, or am I just being silly? AKA, are you just scrolling through Instagram, Facebook, when you know you actually like have a multiple task that actually needs your priority by end of tonight or by Friday. So it's just making sure that you set yourself up for success every single day by asking that question, what do I want to achieve for today? And then at the end of the day, you check and see, what are your wins? What did you get done? And if you're being honest and you did all you could, then if you didn't do everything, then you can move it to the next day and still feel accomplished. So you don't beat yourself up, but you just actually take all your wins and you're very grateful for every single opportunity that you get.
I can go next. You know, busy work, I think, especially, you know, because we're always trying to be, you know, productive over the course of our day, but sometimes I find that productivity is rooted in comparison. And so I think that's the first place where I had to start personally, was not comparing my productivity to anybody else's. This has to be about, you know, my goals, where I'm going, what I'm doing, and my why. And I think if you're aligned with your why, then what you channel your energy into every day then becomes a lot more purpose driven. So for me, especially going through this whole, you know, lockdown, or, you know, work from home thing, being a journalist, you know, working from home was kind of a new thing. I mean, I was editing from home. I wouldn't always go into the station to edit, but not to the extent that I'm now working from home. Like sometimes the video will just come to me at home, I'll cut it and file it, and that's the entire day. And so it has forced me to reevaluate, you know, what really matters and where am I spending my time and how am I spending my time, even at home. So I've become just a lot more, I guess, focused on my schedule. One thing that has helped me, I use the Google Calendar app, or not the Google Calendar app, the Calendar app. That is my best friend. I don't know how people get through the day without like setting themselves reminders and meetings and this and that. I use that app to kind of keep me on track. I also have a hard copy or like an actual day planner, like a book. Like I actually have a day planner that I keep in my purse and pull out and write things down in there. So I would, and I encourage everybody to do that. Like once you get into positions of leadership and management, managing your time is also sometimes about keeping track of where you need to be. And in keeping track of where you need to be, then you're kind of determining, okay, I've got this much time for this much time for that much time for that. I've also got timers on all of my apps. So Instagram has a 20 or 25 minute per day limit. Mm-hmm. So on all of my apps, there are limits, because if you are honest with yourself, you do not need to be on those apps for like collectively for more than an hour a day. I found, as Efe was saying, you know, sometimes I'm just there scrolling. Sometimes I was just there scrolling through, and I legit had things to do, like assignments. You know, I really had things to do. But again, I got caught up in this comparison culture because I was looking at everybody else and where they were and where I wanted to be, instead of actually just doing the work of where I wanted to be. So I began to cut out the things that became distractions, and social media had become a distraction. In terms of guarding my time and my attention, Twitter has become a distraction, especially as a journalist. We spend so much time on Twitter. And let's be honest, Black Twitter is a very engaging place to be, right? And so now I've been doing my best on Twitter, and I've now set timers for Twitter as well. I just can't justify more than 25 minutes a day because it's taking up too much of my time. It's taking up too much of my energy, and it's taking too much of an emotional toll to engage in that space when I know that there are other things that I could be channeling that energy to that will be more purpose driven, that are productive, that give me a sense of hope, more so than I might find just being on social media. So I find it coming back to what Efe says, that, it does start with that honest question about your why, and then you'll begin to look at your pie and figure out, what chunk of the pie or what deserves how big a slice on your pie throughout the day. And I would caution, I think society has told us how much time we should, devote to things. I had that experience definitely when I was, when I first got married, people were saying, you're in school, you run a nonprofit. What about your husband? Are you home to make dinner for your husband? There's a lot of that guilt tripping, that society gives you, that my husband wasn't putting on me, that he was not like, I don't hear about that stuff, but there's a lot of that societal pressure to do things the way that society tells you. And I think when we talk about productivity, the first thing we have to do is undo our way of thinking around what deserves our time and what we're spending our time on.
Right. No, thank you. And for you, Lilian, can you also incorporate how with motherhood for you, starting a business, how do you prioritize all that?
So with motherhood, I'm just really honest with myself when it comes to my list, my to-do list. I'm very type A, so I definitely keep lists. But I think it's really important to be honest about the amount of BS and sort of the gossip sites and the blogging and all the stuff that you can kind of get distracted by. I think it's the technique that I use, which is very non-traditional, is that I actually will weave in time, like I'll allocate time for the internet, and that way it doesn't become a rabbit hole effect. And so what I'll do is I'll get something done, make sure that my son is looked after, and then I'll check out ybf.com, and then I'll get back to work, and then I'll check something else up after that. But I don't necessarily, I used to use the technique of punishing myself or rewarding myself, which is, if I can get X, Y, and Z done, then I can go and check out this website. And that worked for a while, but then I would be on that website and then there would be a link to something else, and I'd find myself reading about like someone's life and figuring and like reading an entire bio. So I think it's just really important to be honest with what it is that you want to check out in a day, and then allocate time for things that are not necessarily important to your job. Because I think I think if you drill yourself so hard and you say, you know what, I'm going to do this, that, and the third, you're never going to get through that list. But if you tell yourself, I need to get this one thing done, laundry, and then after that, I get to, listen to an album while dancing with my son, then that's fine. Like, you have to just accept your own truth and not be so tough on yourself. Because if you don't show compassion for yourself, you can't show it for others. So
That's right.
100%. So when you're trying to prioritize all this stuff and someone comes up to you and they're like, it's a great connection, you feel like, oh, they would be great like for this time, but it's just, you actually have to say no. So how many times have you been able to practice the word no, knowing that maybe later on you can say yes, but at this moment you actually have to say no? Or did you say yes and then later on say no? Because I found myself in those situations where I have to be honest and I can't commit to this. So in what situations, how did you practice saying no? And even when it is the right connections, because sometimes it is that like, oh, this is great, but it actually just does not work for you right now. And how do you keep those connections?
personally now I've stopped like answering right away. You know, sometimes people ask you something and you feel compelled, like you got to tell them right away. You got, you know, whether or not you can do it. And now I'm like, let me get back to you. You know, just leave this with me and I'll get back to you. And now I'm finding that gives me an opportunity to go away and think about realistically whether or not I can actually do this. And sometimes I know upfront, like at the beginning of this year, you know, I was finishing up school, I've got, you know, the CABJ, I've got work. So anybody who came to me with anything, I was just like, no, 2020 is not the year, sis.
Yeah.
You know, so I could tell people, you know, upfront, no, I cannot do that. I think the area that I have struggled with no the most, and I'm just coming into maturity with now, is in the church space. You know, for anybody else who, you know, is part of a church community or faith-based community, you know, so you go to church and you start serving and they want you in everything. And this is a great thing, you know, when you start to get involved, but sometimes there can be that guilt, like, I want to help here and I've got this skill to help here and I've got this talent and I can do this and I can do that. Plus you're doing work, plus you've got home life, plus you've got this, you know, and suddenly you start to feel stretched, but you also feel guilty if you're not serving. And I had to just shed that guilt, because that is, you know, I just don't believe that that's scriptural or spiritual, you know, that's just the pressure that we put on ourselves. And so that's an area where I have started to say no, and not because I don't want to serve, but because you know, I have to find that healthy balance in every area of my life. So I think when it comes to saying no, it's about maturing. I think at least that's been the journey for me. It's been about maturing and just being honest with myself and with others.
Thank you.
I think it's a good idea to examine before saying no. I think it's always wise to sort of look at why you're saying no, and sometimes it can actually inform a better relationship with that person. So for instance, if someone has an idea for something and it's not necessarily in line with my brand or something that I'm working on, then I can say, you know what, I would much rather do this. And that's not necessarily saying no. That's just being honest and upfront about what's most valuable and most interesting to me. And then sometimes it just redirects the conversation. So, you know, when I was doing improv during theater study a long time ago, they always said, you know, when you're doing improv, you never say no. Like if you're going back and forth with someone, you never say no, because it'll stop the show. It'll end things right there. But if you just say, you know what, let's go to the grocery store. And then you say to the person, yeah, you know what, I like markets better. Markets are more of my vibe. And then the person will understand, okay, that's what you're into. But if you never say that and you just say no, they'll never know that you don't necessarily hate the idea of shopping. You just like to be in a different environment for it. So I think it's always ideal to kind of study the reason for your no, and then see if there's an opportunity to, you know, change the course of action.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because I think it ties very much with what I was going to say as well, with like your values, because your values are going to be very different to someone else's value. And when it comes to my business, I definitely use that word very much, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but often, because I have to always work with someone that I feel is truly there with the intent to change something, or to go to someone else's event. It's like, if they don't have a brand or a mission that actually like spread positivity, if you look at it, it could come back negatively and also hurt you, because you have to put yourself in that position to be scrutinized, right? So if they do something wrong or something happens, people can take a look at it and think that that's who you are. It could be something to someone else, and it could just make the thing unravel. So for me, I've always been one of those people where I just speak my mind, and I do it very cautiously, but I always try to speak my mind. Like if I see something that I'm not happy with, I'm just kind of like, hold up, I think what you just said is really great, but I feel this way, so that's why I'm not going to go ahead with it. But let me just really think about it and see if if my mind would change. And I do that for things that I actually really truly want to go further with and kind of see if there's a way to make it work. But when in my heart I already feel uncomfortable with it, I just go straight away and be like, okay, this is not for me. Like, I don't think my path is the same path as yours. Like, we're not meant to be going through this. I do it with my friendship. Literally, when I was younger, when I met new people, because of the way I was brought up, I always just tell them, especially what my intentions were for the friendship. I'd be like, what I want is somebody that can literally sit in my couch and be truly myself. Like, I don't want to have to wear, when I actually wore wigs, I don't want to have to wear wigs with my friends and they never see my scalp. I don't want to have to pretend to be somebody that I'm not and have a mask on 24/7. It's exhausting. I don't want to have to wear makeup to be around people who think that's what is normal. I want to sit on the couch and wear shorts and be scrumpy and be a girl and be a woman and be involved in. So it's the same thing. And I want to be in a place where I can feel I can trust the people I'm working with, that the people I'm in the friendship, in a relationship, in a community with. And even now with my husband, I did the same thing while we were dating. I wanted to understand that our mission, like our future aligned, like who we were aligned together. And the same thing with a business. You have to make sure the relationship is going to grow. Like, you both are going to add value to each other and watch each other really grow. And you want that person to succeed and the other person wants you to succeed. So, but often at times we do that because we want to get ahead, and we tend to say yes to certain things because we feel pressured that if we don't go ahead and do it, there might not be another opportunity. And that again kind of actually like puts more pressure, right, on us. And when we do end up doing it, what I've found is I find that I get uncomfortable because then I'm like, I've just pushed myself into a situation now that I have to think about how to get out of it. So I've just realized that the feeling I felt the first time I did that was so painful and uncomfortable that I felt like I'm not doing myself any service by saying yes when I wanted to say no. So I would rather that you don't agree with me or you don't, we're no friends or whatever, by speaking the truth and letting you understand that that was my true purpose, to tell you the truth, but not to hurt you. And then let it be that. And for me, like you said, Nadia, my faith is based, like, God is everywhere. Like, he's the center of everything that I do. So I take it very seriously when it comes to saying no to someone. It's like the same thing with church. I used to sing so much back in the UK at Hillsong that there's so much responsibility, the pressure. You got to do this, you got to do this. And then you forget who you are and you forget what you go to church for, because it's like every Sunday you're on stage and you're singing. And then when you're off the stage, you're sitting only to be listening to the rest of your people, if you're when you're worship leading, but then you're not getting the message. So it's the same thing in your business. If you're focused so much with what's going on in their world, then you forget about what's going on in your world, because you're trying to make sure that they're taken care of. But then at the same time, is that really what you want? And it goes back again to being honest with what you want. And that thing is the same thing. I always tell people, know what you want and what you don't, because then it would serve you a whole great deal and save you a lot of headache and save you a lot of time, because then you can just go straight and minus the BS and see people's true intentions right when they come at you. And you can just say, you know what, this doesn't work for me. And these are my reasons why, if you want to explain. But if you don't, then that's also fine. But you just got to do it respectfully and amicably, so that way there is peace, right? So it's just finding the balance, but always knowing what you want would always try to help you direct the course of your conversation and know how to sort of actually like react to certain situation before you respond. So perhaps think about it that way, because I always do every time before I say yes. So yeah, because time is precious.
Yes, exactly. So thank you for that. So now we're just going to move on to collaborating between women, empowering each other, inspiring each other, and how do we lead together. So all of you I've talked about the different sides of business and things like that. So when you're starting something or starting a new position in leadership or management, so when do you know how to start a team? Or do you need a team right now? Or how do you delegate different things to people? Because I think sometimes for me, one of the pressures I feel sometimes is like, oh, I'll just do it because I already know how to do it. And it's not even out of the, like, I don't think that they can do it. It's like a sense of control for me. And so learning to delegate is like something that I really have been learning to work on a lot more. And for me, sometimes I think it was like a sense of like feeling weak or that I can't do it. And so it's like finding, like, I wanted to always just figure it out. And like, it's always like a puzzle for me of like, I'll just do it. But it's like when people are more than capable of doing it, like, how do you set aside like, okay, this is the team that does this, that you're supposed to delegate? How do you let go? When do you know when to hire? When do you actually feel like you need a team if you are starting a business? And is it the first year? Is it after 2 years? What is your experience and how do you feel about that?
I don't know. I think for me, because my company right now is all about I'm my own brand. So I think Lilian would definitely have this when it comes to actually hiring more people. But for me, I would go to the extent as one, for Lilian, when your business would overpour, right? And it would have to require arms and legs. So I would love to hear your experience in that. But for me right now, I think I'm the same with you. Like, I love the control of the fact that I know I can do it.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier than explaining to someone and saying, oh, I like it this way. Can you just write it that way? And then, oh, just make sure it's just too long. So I just go right ahead and do it. And sometimes I catch myself and I'm like, hold on, but you said you were going to delegate. You have to learn how to do that. And I struggled with that early on in the business because I didn't want to outsource people because I felt like that's such a waste of money. I can do this, but then you got to think, again, it's the time. The time is going to take you to do all these things could be, viably used somewhere else in the actual work of what you need to then teach those women or the people I have to do a workshop for, rather than actually creating a piece of template or article or a contract that I don't enjoy, but I actually do it because I understand it. But over the years, I've actually learned that there are things that I'm going to have to outsource people for, and I'm going to have to ask the expertise to take, that extra work off my shoulders. And in doing so, it's also growth for me because I'm actually learning something else that they would know that I necessarily wouldn't know how to do my own way in the first place, or how to get things done quicker. And it's not a bad thing, whereas before I used to see it as a completely horrifying thing and say, no, maybe I'm just not capable of it. But in the end, you're just calling someone else who is who this is, and that's the expertise, sorry. So delegating for me, I do it now because it's the time. And for example, with my social media, I knew that was something that I don't truly enjoy. If it was up to me, I would carry on doing my business like I've been doing since before Instagram became famous, where I just walk through word of mouth, connections, community building. That person tells you that. Eventually, I ended up coming into the norm of social media. And I would say it hasn't been a very easy journey for me because I don't understand all the parts of it. I obviously don't think there's so many mixed messages in there. So for me, I tried to actually get some people to actually help me. There was a point where I was looking for someone to take the whole thing and just control it. But the only person I've seen that comes close to it most of the time is my own husband, because he can literally think the way I feel and make it sound exactly as I want it to sound. And then he cuts the whole workload by creating a whole template, and all I have to do is just put it the way I want it and then send. So that's one closest to me that I can actually trust to do it. Again, it's that trust. If you don't know people, you don't trust them, it's also hard to delegate. But
I think she froze.
Frozen.
Well, someone else can answer while we wait.
Lily, do you want to?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll jump in. So I feel like with adding a team, I always sort of look at sports as an analogy. Sports is, oh, you're back. Did you want to finish your point? Because it cut out.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure. Oh, I wasn't sure if it was me.
Yeah, it cut out for a second there.
Yeah, but just to conclude that, I think delegating is very important if you can. I encourage it just so you can actually balance the whole workout. I'm a business of one, and it's just easier, but I only outsource when I actually need extra support for that. And everything else, again, is down to my own time management and making sure that I put everything in priority and in order, and making sure that I have time to take my own mental break and not do too much so I don't, burn myself out. But when, of course, it grows and there are more opportunities to do so, I have I'm at the place now where I've matured, that it's not something that scares me, but it's also giving someone an opportunity to actually kickstart their own career. So I encourage it wherever it's possible, because everybody needs that first opportunity to learn and be better, and so they can go out into the world and show people what they're capable of. And sometimes your company, who you are, might be that first opportunity that opens the door for them to learn. So don't be afraid of it. In fact, nurture it wherever you can. So yeah.
Absolutely. And, I too relate to that wanting to have control. And One thing I'll say is don't wait till you lose control before you add it to your team. You kind of want people there before that happens. But I find that, you know, once you build your vision, once you know exactly the direction that you want for your company, your brand, then it's important to sort of see, okay, well, who are the players that are going to make this happen? And they don't necessarily need to be there on day one of your business. They can come in later on, and they can be, you know, recruited through friends and through networks and through Instagram and all sorts of different avenues. But I think that it's important to build that vision. And then when you build that vision, this is going to sound absolutely crazy, but when you build that vision, invite your biggest hater in the entire world. Invite the most negative Nancy that you've ever known, whoever that person is in your life. It could be your mother, your sister, your best friend. It could be the person who just is, you know, a non-believer. Invite that person in. And I actually did this, so this is a true story. Invite the biggest hater into the room. Show them your plan. They will show you all the reasons why everything that you're doing won't work. And they are saying this all based off of you and how much they know your skills and your level, right? And it can seem like a really negative exercise and just a really hard thing to do, but it's something that just allows you to have a clear understanding of perhaps areas that you're not strongest in. And then once you know those areas, you go, okay, you know what? Janelle would be better for that. That would be Janelle. I'm going to call Janelle on August 2021 since 2020 is canceled. And then when she comes in, I'm going to have her do, you know, this portion of the business. And I find that that just allows you to kind of, you know, have a more realistic approach to your business and not set yourself up for so much disappointment. And when you don't bring a team in, you really are disappointing yourself because you're not allowing your fullest potential as a leader to really lead. You're just allowing yourself to show off to yourself. And that doesn't, I mean, that's not going to do anything. It's not going to build your brand. So I think it's really important to bring those players in, you know, have those meetings and bring them in slowly. That's another big thing is there's no race to building a team. You don't need everyone at once. And, you know, exercise the value of working with juniors because they will teach you so much about yourself that you didn't know. So work with juniors, work with seniors, mix it up, have diversity, because all the answers never come from one person. So that's what I would say about that.
Thank you. That's really good.
So true. You really do need a mix on your team so that you can really get the full breadth of the wisdom, you know, across the generations. And that's definitely what I found with, has been a wonderful, I guess, blessing just with the CABJ team. When we relaunched the CABJ, actually, let me go back a little bit. So the CABJ has been in existence since 1996, but there were, because of an absence of succession planning, there were 2 lapses in leadership. And in 2010, the organization fell apart. And so it had been dormant until I got in contact with the former president and said, I want to revive this organization. And so began that work in 2016 and pulled a team together. And we relaunched in 2018 and built the board from there. So that's how our team, how my team came to be. And I was a big part of building that team. I think the advantage that I have with my team is because we're the CAB, the Canadian Association of Black Journalists. We're all Black, and B, we're all journalists. So, you know, there is that advantage that, you know, we have those commonalities. And as journalists, I know that they are outspoken. So whatever they think they're going to say, because that's just how it goes with journalism. In the nonprofit world, personally, I believe in the nonprofit world, it is important to execute your vision without a team. And so you have to consider very carefully who you want to be on your team. I agree with Lilian, build the team slowly. I also agree with Lilian, build the team with people who you don't necessarily agree with. If you surround yourself with people who will only ever agree with you, in some ways that reveals a bit of an insecurity in you that you don't want to be challenged. And so you also need someone on your team who is going to challenge you, not in a way to destroy the team, but to make the team better. And it's going to challenge you to listen to opinions that you might not necessarily agree with. And in listening to those opinions, you never know, it can make your idea, your program, your plan much stronger. And that's what I found with the CABJ. We don't always agree, but in the end, we have a great product. In the end, we launched J School Noir. In the end, we're doing CABJ Connects. And, we in the end, we do great work, even though we don't always agree. What happens at the board level is, I think, really important as well. If you're in the nonprofit world, find people who are in the same field as you. This is what I would kind of advise in terms of building that board, but also get people who are not in the same field. And that's something new for the CABJ under my leadership, that we also have somebody on the board who does not at all have a journalism background, but is pro-Black and who is able to kind of bring a different perspective, and also working in nonprofits, and who's also able to bring a different perspective. So you want people with different backgrounds, because what they bring to your team is really gonna help you. The more diversity of thought, the better. Sometimes we just look at diversity in terms of skin color, gender, but it's really diversity of thought that you're trying to bring on a team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's really important.
That's right.
Very true. So what would your challenges be in terms of leading a team as a woman? So for example, if there are men on your team, or for example, some people have never been led by a woman before, or different capacities of leadership that you've had to, how is that hard to navigate, or easy to navigate? Maybe you actually haven't had too much a problem, but that'd be rare.
I think that sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go for it, Lilian.
No, I was just gonna say that I think that one of the challenges is just having a comfort in your voice being heard, and just having a confidence behind that. As an entrepreneur, there's no ladder to climb. You are the ladder at the end of the day. And so it's more about who you're interacting with for your business, whether it's a vendor or a customer or a client. And I think it's really, the biggest challenge could sometimes be yourself. And so it's good to kind of assess, okay, am I confident about the decisions that I'm making? Why am I making these choices? How do I truly feel about them? And just really examining your own self before, perhaps placing the blame or whatever it is that you might be experiencing on someone else. Because I think it's really, really important to just know what it is that you want and how you want to execute, and then just go from there. But I think it's just really important to always kind of self-assess and be self-aware.
Yeah, I agree with Lilian. I found, at least for my leadership journey, the same thing, that the biggest challenge I had to overcome was that own voice of self-doubt. My team has always been supportive. So it's about, me growing into that position of leadership and believing in myself, to lead that team. So this journey has required a lot of, self-evaluation, but also, just shaking off of a mindset that I'm not enough or incapable, because I'm not surrounded by people who say that. So you have to ask yourself, who told you that? And that's been a big part of that journey for me.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it goes back to what I was saying before, where we're changing the narrative, because you have to. Because for me, I think my self-motivation stems from the vision or the life that was planned for me. And when I looked at it, it wasn't what I wanted, because that life or that path was not happiness. It was not what I wouldn't even wish for my own worst enemy if I had one. So for me, I look at that and I'm like, I'm grateful that I didn't say yes to that opportunity, the way it was dangled like a beautiful apple in my face as a 15-year-old, right? And here I am, living that life that I've worked so hard for. And for me, it was a difficult struggle because I felt like when I started off as a Black woman going into science, and especially in Oxford, there were so many people with competition and people who came from family and that line of like, oh, you have to go there, you have to study, you have to become this, there's money, you need it, we got it. And there I am on the corner having to actually do 3 jobs to pay off my first term of my medical school and trying to still understand what the teacher said in the first semester or just last week. So there were so many things that I was faced with. But one thing that I realized was I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of because I've heard it my entire life that I was going to be, amount for nothing, that I was worthless, that I was this or I was that, everything negative, I heard it. But the reality was it was nothing like me. It was that person was saying it. And this was my own biological father. He was saying that because he was coming from a place of hurt. And that's a place of hurt that I would never understand. But my mother was very assertive that she made sure that we understood that words are just often very painful, but it only applies and it only becomes true when we accept them. And if you let bad things come into your ear and they exit the other, then it's as good as gone because it doesn't stay in here. So for me, I had to be very careful to control what I let in because I knew what I was capable of. I knew what I wanted to be. So I didn't care if I had to actually like gravel or do extra work or clean extra toilets and lay extra bed in hotel rooms to actually get to my future. Because at the end of the day, I knew what my vision was. I knew what my purpose was. And I knew what was waiting for me on the other side. So going into an office and working as a scientist in a room filled with white male PhD students and telling me that I don't need to apply for that because I don't have the credentials, then going off to school and finishing off a thesis and then come back and say you're too expensive to get the promotion. There's always so many excuses. But one thing for sure is build your confidence, know who you are, and get to the stage where even your confidence, nobody can shake it. It's like something that you just tell yourself that it is mine and I'm going to hold on to it. That's acceptance. And you, again, with the word that you said, Lilian, compassion. We all have to have that because when you walk into a room, and for me, I've walked in so many rooms where I just felt like I was the only woman there. And it's always been the same where as soon as I was climbing up my career ladder, always the Black woman, always the one that was educated, always the one that speaks up and everybody likes it, always the one calling people out because, not to be a show off, but just because it isn't right. And I want you to know that it isn't right. I don't want to tell you behind closed doors. I want to tell you now so we can actually openly discuss about it. And I can teach you and you can teach me something, right? But confidence for me, I felt has helped, like it's just helped me when it comes to climbing up my own leadership ladder. And that's something that I am very grateful for. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. But for me, it stemmed from changing the narrative, from seeing that what I was once told isn't the truth. And I don't have to actually base my entire life on it because I could recreate my own life's chapter. So I did, because there was nothing stopping me, because I saw that if I tried and it was a success, then everything was a lie, that I was told that I was worthless. And in the end, I worked hard for that and it was the opposite. So I became who I wanted to become. I became who I actually saw myself as a 6-year-old becoming. And I loved that person, someone with integrity and wasn't willing to compromise that to get ahead, but also, just keep my peace. So we all have to kind of actually like realize that we have value and know what line we're not going to cross. And also just sort of actually bring our confidence. And if you don't have it, that's what I mean. Surround yourself with good people, with a good community that always sees your potential and it isn't afraid to push it out of you, even when you're not capable of doing it yourself. And that, honestly, I feel like that's what leadership is all about. That's what supporting another woman is all about. It's not about being intimidated or being jealous, but helping them get ahead just so you can see them grow, because you know that that's what potentially sometimes our purpose is in life, is to bring someone else who would change the whole game. And when you do that, you know that your future and your life will be better for it. So that's who we got to actually aspire to be every single day, just try to be the best version and make sure that we're helping people do the same. So it takes courage to build yourself up, but it is possible. It's a work in progress. We're all work in progress every single day. So it's a never ending job. to be a good person. I say that all the time, but it is worth it. It's worth every single challenge of it.
Thank you. So to go off of that, how do you develop your emotional intelligence, or how have you been able to develop your emotional intelligence, or are you in the process of doing that?
Oh, I can go ahead.
Yeah.
You
to think about.
It's so funny. You never know if there's a technical difficulty or if someone's like, do you hear me?
It's so true.
You know what? I actually have a kind of funny story about emotional intelligence because I guess the rocket launched today and it was a big deal. So when I was learning about emotional intelligence and just, you know, how important it is to have that as a leader, I saw this story about this astronaut. So there's this woman named Laura, I think her name's like Laura Wick or something. But she was like a 90s astronaut and super intelligent, went and got her astrophysics major, everything. To become an astronaut is super hard. You have to have like 1,000 hours of pilot experience, and you have to be physically fit and just super hyper intelligent. And so she, was selected by NASA to go and go up to space. And so that was a really rare thing. And she was considered one of the smartest, most brilliant people in the world. So she went and did this, and everyone praised her. And then a couple years later, I think like 2007, so from the 90s to like 2007, she found out that her boyfriend was cheating on her. Now, I don't know if this is when she was up in space or not. Don't worry, I'm getting to my point. But she found out that her boyfriend was cheating on her. So what she did was she got in a car and she drove 15 hours, I think from like Houston to Orlando or something. And she went to go confront this woman. And she put on a diaper and got in the car. This is a true story. Put on a diaper, got in a car and drove across. And then what she also did was she brought like zip-it ties and a garbage bag and had a plan to basically kidnap this woman. On the way there, she had a breakdown and she basically got arrested because they found her in a hot mess of her own, for lack of a better word, shit. And they were like, you know what? You were up to no good. You got to go. And so scientists were like, wait a minute, what is this? Like, why is it that someone who's so smart can make such a stupid decision, right? Because we all admire her. She's perfect. And same goes for heroes that we admire in the community, be it, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, everyone has Serena Williams, everyone has their moments in life where they break down. And I feel like for your emotional intelligence, it's just most important to check in, going back to self-awareness, but to also allow yourself to be aware of your own sort of BS or like your trigger points, because if you have that walking into a meeting that's filled of white men, you will know how to deal in those situations. So, right now, collectively, I don't want to make an assumption for everyone, but we are very, very angry. We are very sensitive. We are very tempered. And it's not by accident, and it's definitely not by choice. Right. And so I think that being able to get the tools in our lives, whether that be our mother, whether that be, a song that calms us, whether that be meditation, whether that be a walk in the park or a dedication to talking to a best friend once a day, we have to armor ourselves with these things more than ever, because things are going to take place in our lives that are so disconnected from our job, and it's reached a boiling point where patience has been expired, and it's more important than ever for us to be compassionate and to empathize with others as well, and to allow yourself to accept some of your assumptions. And what I mean by that is our experience is so unique. No one will have the Black experience ever, right? And so when we walk into a room, if we understand that someone is potentially less educated than us, then we can be more understanding of how to communicate with that person, right? They don't necessarily know what it's like to walk into a store. They don't necessarily know what it's like to wake up every day. And, you know, I mean, now people are experiencing distance, but we've been experiencing distance. So there's just so many layers, right? And you talked about, you know, the weave thing, like, God damn, it took me so long to get rid of my weave. But it's not that I don't like a weave. It's just that, you know, that was a layer of building my confidence to be like, okay, you know what, maybe I can be okay with, you know, I don't know how to do it myself yet. I'm lacking in that department. So I just feel like when it comes to emotional intelligence, it's good to understand basically what our trigger points are, and to check in with other people, be that, you know, a psychologist, be truthful about that. If you need to reach out to someone more professional, to not be afraid of bringing in a third party, and just, you know, yeah, be very, very conscious right now of what other people are going through, including yourself. Don't ignore yourself right now is my biggest takeaway. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I think in Black culture, like, I don't know about you guys, so I won't speak on it, but when I was growing up and surrounded by, when I started making friends within the Black community, because for me, I was always the Black girl, the only Black girl in the school, especially when we went back to Houston, Texas. But in Nigeria, it's fine. It was way too many. So for me, it didn't really matter. I think moving and being born in Nigeria and then moving to Houston at the age of like 1, and then moving for the rest of my life and ending up in Belgium at the age of 14, I literally grew up in the world. Like, and for me, it never became a thing where I noticed, like that question, where we hear it now, and people would say, oh, where are you from originally? For me, when I was growing up, people just say, oh yeah, I'm from Silver Lake. I would tell people I'm from Silver Lake in Houston. Oh, great, awesome. But because that's where I live. That's where, when I was in Belgium, I'd be like, I live in Brussels. And then when I was in Nigeria, for the most part, I'd be like, oh yeah, I live with my mom and my auntie in Lagos. So it was always specifically by that word. But then I think over the years, when I started meeting people, and like you said, Lilian, don't be afraid to reach out to a third party. I bring that story up because in the Black community, it was always seen as letting people in, as they could be intruders. And when somebody said that to me, I think I was in my early 20s, I was maybe 20, 21. And they said, I would never see a therapist because Black people don't need therapists. And for me, I was like, okay, I can understand, but what's your reason? And they didn't elaborate more. But by the time I pushed further, because I'm one of those people that just want to get it, and I always like poke extra, I found out that she grew up with a concept that we're not allowed to talk to other people outside of our circle about our problem. And for me, I felt like, okay, I understand where she's coming from, because as a child, when I was 14, and I met a counselor about my parents who were going a very brutal divorce. And I told her what I felt about the situation and how the words were twisted a few months later in a court of law. And it resulted for my sister being separated from my mother and put in an orphanage when both her parents were alive. I felt like, okay, I understand where she's coming. We can't trust outsiders. But if I didn't experience that, I would know how to kind of be compassionate for where she was coming from. But again, I had to understand that that was one woman, and I had to heal from that and stop seeing them as that. And I'm not saying that everybody's going to be corrupt and everybody's going to be messy and everybody's going to understand what you're going through. But we have to get to that stage at the same time where we have to ask for help, and help might look different to everybody. But most of all is to find help that you're comfortable with, you know, and be, like you said, be aware of how you feel. It's so important, because sometimes we're so quick to shut it down. And we just keep going. And we're like, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm one of those people. I did it for so many years that I became an expert at it. And it's not healthy, not for your body anyway, because whether you see it on the physical outside of yourself, it's not good for the inside. I had to learn just mentally what that actually causes. And I think that kind of actually like stemmed when I was looking at when I was researching my thesis and looking at postpartum depression and how it affects the cognitive function in children. I was looking into the neuro side of it and how children are affected by their mother who feel disconnected from them through breastfeeding. And I was thinking, if a child could feed this way, and I feel this way half the time, and I never let people know how I feel, then how much damage am I absolutely doing to my neurotransmitters? So you kind of have to think, what is more important? You keeping silence with the way you feel and not tapping and not giving yourself compassion, or not tapping into that area of pain that's causing you discomfort? What is it worth to you? Or would you rather find a true confidant, a mentor, perhaps, if not a therapist? I'm not saying go see one, but a mentor, someone that could actually be there for you, listen to you, and isn't afraid to tell you what you need to hear. It's like what you said, Nadia, before earlier. It's so important to find people who are not going to say things that you want to hear, because that will not help you. You won't grow. You won't grow at all. You would just completely stay in a situation that, as I call it, a very tight bubble that you just will constantly stay in without knowing what else is going on in the world and what else you're capable of. So finding people who can be honest and say, hey girl, I think you really need to just chill. You need to take some time out. You need to talk to someone. I've got a great mentor for you. Don't tell me if you don't want it, because if it doesn't, I don't want us to, or make you feel like you're going to interrupt our friendship or cause a emotion here. But please talk to someone. That's it. But we have to check in with ourselves. It's so important as Black women. We don't do it enough because we've been programmed to be strong. We can't show weakness because our counterparts are going to look at us and think that we're incapable. We can't go out in the streets and cry, but yet you can see someone else crying in the street, a white girl, and everybody will come around and say, hey, what's going on here? But if it's a Black girl, we all know that they would look at us and go, she crazy or something? There's always something about it. So because of that, we've been so programmed and tight-knit about sharing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we know now that change is going to come. It has to come, because there's so much emotions now rolling for years of actually like being quiet and saying nothing and just watching aimlessly and people standing and doing nothing. But we all have a voice. But it's up to us to decide, how do we want to use it? Do we want to use it for the good and actually grab people that we know are not afraid to actually use their own voice for change and to make an impact? Then we got to make that decision. But I would just go back and summarize it. Like Lilian and Nadia said, you got to check in with yourself. Make sure you have a great community. Make sure you have mentors that are helping you. And these are people that you admire. Find those people and reach out to them and say, hey, I just need you to mentor me in my career or mentor me in my personal growth, whatever it may be. But don't do life alone, because to be honest, it was never meant to be alone. And I used to be like that, where I tell people, just figure things out yourself, because I was alone for most of my entire life. Up till I was 26, I had to be. I couldn't trust people. But at the end, I knew that there were good people around me at that point, but it was hard for me to let the walls down that I've built for myself for years to make sure that I was safe. And if they weren't there, I wouldn't be where I am now. But that was my journey. And we don't have to be stubborn beyond when we know that we have to put everything down and just lay on the floor or lay it on the altar, like I said. So you got to choose. You just got to choose and make sure that you're making the best decision that's always best for you, and asking for help when you know that your body physically is telling you, your mind is telling you, you're exhausted. That's your body communicating. Your mind constantly like deviating and getting distracted easily about certain things that is chiming in there. That's when you got to pay attention. That's when you know that there's something that you got to look face on and say, hey, today I'm going to face my fears. I'm going to face this thing that's been absolutely like driving me nuts, and just get out of my own, like you said, BS, and really tackle the actual problem. Because if you're not honest with yourself, it won't go away because we wish it. It will constantly be there. And then another trigger will set it off. And the worst thing that we don't want is to be set off in the worst possible place, because that we don't do everything that you've worked hard for in 1 minute. I've seen it happen to me, and you don't want to have to reclimb that back up. So take it from my advice. Don't wait until your boiling point to do a change. Try to take baby steps and make sure you have support group. And you got one right here. Black Women Connect Vancouver. Find some mentors in there. Just saying.
It's so true though. And that is the reason why it really did start. It was the core reason is I wanted to see other Black women to have a place where they connect, can be themselves, be fully themselves. I think sometimes, like we've talked about, we don't get to be in spaces where we fully get to be ourselves or be understood or heard. But when we talk about certain things, like the person next to you right away can be like, yeah, I get it, because we all have that same narrative, right? And so for us as a group, it's changing the narrative too of trusting each other, working together. What does that look like? And so creating spaces like this and allowing ourselves to actually be vulnerable is what that allows us to grow, and for other people to see like there is a commonality in this, and this is important in our community.
Yeah, and I think, you know, spaces like this are important because as Black women, and I actually believe, you know, Black women, when it comes to emotional intelligence, we are stronger in that area than we know. Because of double consciousness, we have had to exist in spaces where we're always trying to figure out what that person is thinking about me. But the problem is what that has become is I'm trying to figure out what you're thinking, and then how do I fix myself to fit into this? How do I, you know, kind of contort myself to make it work? And so we're always contorting ourselves as Black women, but at the root of it, it's because we are so emotionally intelligent. We can read a room, we can read people, you know, we just see, like Triana's over there snapping her fingers, like, this is what we do. We can read people, we can figure things out, you know? And so this is Black women. I think it's become toxic in that it's become something, you know, we read people in order to see what we then have to do. And that's where it's become unhealthy. And so I think what we have to do is take this strength that we have as Black women in being so emotionally intelligent and use these spaces like Black Women Connect Vancouver. You know, as Efe and Lilian have been saying, you know, like mentors, safe spaces, therapy. I spent years saying that Black women don't go to therapy. Yes. I went to therapy. And so, you know, we have to create these spaces and find these spaces, and where we don't have to figure everything out, where double consciousness doesn't have to be at play, where I can just be me. I can have an honest conversation with you about me, about what I'm going through and what I'm feeling. I need a safe space where I can just work things out. I can work through it. And so as Black women, I think it's so important that we create, if the space isn't there, create it for yourself. Because I think that is integral to your emotional, you know, to your emotional health. But always remember, as a Black woman, your mind is stronger than you know. And it's just because of what we've been through, what we've had to go through, our minds, we have to have strong minds. And so it's just time to stop using that mind to figure everybody else out and just focus on you.
Right. That's really good. Thank you. So I'm going to do some question and answers. So one of them is, what advice can you give to a mid-career Black woman who excel in their fields but are constantly treated as a threat for their ambition?
That's a loaded and very close to home one.
It's short form. We'll try to.
It's a loaded question with a lot of answer.
So I mean, I want to end this thing in like the next 10-15 minutes, so we'll try to, like, as much as you can answer that question, because I know we've all kind of had that where people have questioned, like, oh, you want to start this? I mean, even for Black Women Connect Vancouver, I had the exact same thing of people being like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, questioning, like, do you feel like you're the right person? Like, maybe, you know. And so we all get that, even whether we're just women in leadership, but especially as Black women, it's like you're not considered to even have ambition to do something greater. Like, why don't you just stick to this mold? And then when you're set in a position of management or leadership and people see you excelling, they're like, wait, she excels in this? It's like this like question back of why are they progressing in this?
one thing I would say is, don't internalize what people say about Black women, because they don't understand you. They don't understand your journey. They don't know you. So don't internalize what people say about you and what your ambitions are and why you're trying to climb the ladder. Definitely don't internalize that. I remember my first job, the boss who was hiring me, she said, if you're going to come out here, you got to know what you're about. And so, that's always the advice that I give people now. You got to know what you're about. And once you know what you're about, nobody can destabilize you. Nobody can say anything that's going to make you feel like, that's going to make you question, yourself or your motives or your ability. So I think that is, for me, that's always the most important thing. And that's what I've been focusing on now. It's been growing through my leadership. What am I about?
Yeah, that's so good, because I feel like knowing who you are is such a beautiful thing. Like, it cannot be shaken, and somebody can't come in easily and tell you what you are, because you already know. But as a Black community, we know this to be true, that there's so many people who do struggle with their own identity, right? Because they look for that in somebody else, and they look for self-validation from somebody else. And it's not something that's new. It's something that has been put into our culture over the years, like people telling us that we were one thing and then having to learn the whole truth behind the curtain, right? So it's a hard one, but I feel like Nadia definitely hit that nail right there, where, if you have your confidence, if you know who you are, you're unshakable, you're unstoppable. And you're one of a strong Black woman walking the earth. It's a very, very good thing to have, but it's also something that you have to have discipline, and you have to have commitment, and you have to be willing to want it and do the self-work to get it. Because that's one thing that I can always tell people, that I would not be broken unless God comes from heaven himself and decide to make it happen. My confidence is something that people can't shake, because it's rooted to my every single vein. It's rooted to my core. You can tell me things, you can call me names, you can say whatever. It's fine. I'll let you get all the air off your chest, because it's free, right? Freedom of speech and all that. But one thing I know is I know who I am. And that's not something that anybody else can then tell me that I'm not, because I already know. I've already worked hard for it. I see it every single day. I affirm it every single time. I stare at myself, brushing my teeth, walking out of my house, brushing my hair. All these things is now wired to my very being. So if you work hard to get to that place, it will serve you well in any place, in anything that you do in life, because you just won't be able to be easily pushed, because you know where all your buttons are. And it's that simple, but you got to work for it. And it's just a lot of discipline and a lot of time, but you got to give yourself patience too, right? And that's what growing is all about. But it's a decision that we all have to make. But nonetheless, I think it's one that just knowing who you are is the first key step. So that way somebody can't come in and give you a false identity and you claim it as yours. That life is over. We're very smart. We're very savvy. As Black people, we are smart people. And that's the thing. It's like one of my posts that I said the other day, like, if people are constantly attacking your self-confidence or your self-esteem, it's because they already know what your potential is. And even if you don't know about it yet, they already see it. So you know what? They want to make sure that you don't get there. So that's why they're trying to use words or some things to actually like derail you from your own journey. But if you know who you are, you will be easily quick to actually see that trigger before you actually like settle in your own heart or your soul. So that way it won't work, because you already beat them at their own game. Mm-hmm. So it's just knowing yourself and building your confidence each and every day, so that way you can be unstoppable to do exactly what you've been put on this earth to do.
Yeah. And the other thing too, for me, is not apologizing for your ambition.
Oh no, never apologize for your ambition.
When we talked about self-doubt and things like that, I think that sometimes once you start self-doubting yourself and you get into that point, you just have to be like, why am I putting myself in this position? And also forgive yourself to be putting yourself in that position, but then don't apologize to other people. Yeah. So if someone does question your ambition or your goals or your dreams, don't apologize for it. If you're like, oh, maybe I should think about this, like, just reframing our mind of being like, why do I even have that in my mind? And stepping forward in that is something that I had to learn to do, and not to apologize. If I have these things that I want to accomplish, say, for example, in the next 5 years, I shouldn't be apologetic for it. It should just make me drive to be there. Because really, who am I proving to anyone, right? And so, yeah, I think that was something that I had to really learn.
Never sell yourself short.
Yeah.
That's it. Never sell yourself short. Yeah. Self-doubt.
It's just a trap.
There's a lot of dream stealers. There's a lot of dream stealers, and self-doubt is one of them. It's one of the top right there. And then critical self-talk. We got that. The fear of failure, right? We got that too. And it's just all these things. You got to be very careful of those dream stealers, because they come in and they are very, very charming, and you don't see them happening, right? Until it's sometimes too late. So, like you said, never apologize for who you are, for being ambitious, for wanting to go after something that you know that you're capable of, that you want, that you deserve. Never apologize for that, and never sell yourself short. If anybody's telling you, oh, do you think you're really good at this? Yes. If you truly believe it, you respond with, yes, I think I am. You got a problem with that? What? I want to know why you think I'm not, so I can just hear you again, use your words. But never apologize for who you are, because you're not doing anybody any justice by selling yourself short, because the world would never see what you're capable of. They would never see your potential if you carry on apologizing all day, every day. Just imagine that for a second. That would be a job in itself. So yeah.
I would just add to that. If you know what you want to do and you are truly ambitious about it, then I think it's important, at least for myself, I found that sometimes I don't need to share my ambition. And that was just my approach to it. I used to be the person who would tell everybody all of my ideas. This is what I'm going to do. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. And then 5 people would come back to me and be like, actually, it's not going to work. Or you're outside of your lane, stay in your lane. And so I think it's really important to just, approach your ambition, or just own it in a way that makes sense for who you are, because sometimes you can trigger your own emotions by being, putting yourself in vulnerable positions where you're going to be attacked by the people that are going to hate on you. And sometimes, like Efe said, sometimes they are the closest people to you that are going to come at you, right? And so it's really valuable to sometimes go, okay, well, I know that I'm ambitious about this thing. I know that I want to get to this place in the job, and I'm going to get there, and then I'm going to ask my haters to finish and tell me all the reasons why they thought I wasn't going to make it to that place. So yeah, I think just sort of understanding whether or not you need to be vocal about your ambition is important too.
Yeah, I love that, because I'm definitely one of those people where I'm very careful with who I actually tell what I'm doing. And it's best, because for me, my entire life, he served me well. People thought I didn't graduate school, but then by the time they found out I actually came out with 4 degrees, they were like, oh, we thought you weren't doing anything. But it's that shock, because at the end of it, they're just in awe of you, because they're like, oh, we've been saying all these things, but she's been busy. Because for me, I like to be busy behind the scene. All that BTS, I'm all about it, because it's like, it's on a need to know basis. If it ain't about you, then why I gotta put you in this table? Because like you said, then the negativity come in, and then they start stirring up trouble in your head, and you're questioning things, and before you know, you've abandoned the whole mission. So don't feed yourself with people who would not help you shine, but they just drop the bomb, and then they watch you undo it. So on a need to know basis, not everything is meant to be shared. And I mean this with love, even to your own closest family. There's certain things that you just gotta, first of all, examine, see how it works, see how it's gonna play out. You've examined the pros and the cons, and look at what it's gonna look like when it's at the finish line. And then you can start seeing how to actually tell people about it. Because sometimes we're so quick sometimes that we wanna tell people, and there's nothing wrong with that. We wanna share that passion with people and let them know what we're thinking, what we're gonna do next. But just sometimes in this society that we're in, you have to know that not everybody is fighting for you or rooting for you. So you got to be very careful where you want to plant your seed, because if they know about it, they might go up there and uproot it, and you're waiting for harvest and it never comes. And the only person that's going to be left disappointed is going to be you. So that's what I mean. Knowing your circle, knowing who to trust, And just sometimes, even those people you trust, they don't always have to know. You just have to, first of all, figure it out for yourself, and then you share. So yeah, just be careful. And that's it, really. But we're so quick. I feel like on social media, we always love to actually just like a Facebook status. Oh yes, I'm traveling to Japan tonight to actually sign the contract of so-and-so company.com extra. And then if it doesn't happen, you know what happens? Because then people come. It's like same thing when you actually tell some family members, I'm dating. And then what comes next? When you're going to get married. And then you get married, what comes next? When you're going to have kids. Exactly. So it's literally the same thing with your dreams and your passion. If you tell people too much and you make it such a very much of a public announcement, people want to hear the progress. They feel like they deserve or they're entitled to the progress. So you need to be updating them as you go along. But in the end, do you rather want to actually like succeed at it, or do you want to spend so much time explaining your way through rather than doing the actual work without any distraction? So it's a hard one, but sometimes it is necessary.
Right. Nadia, for you, so how do you climb the corporate ladder but don't compromise who you are, but still execute greater opportunities?
Geez, that's the question. So not compromising who I am. You have to be rooted in a strong sense of your values, who you are, what you're about, where you're going, what you believe. So I am very much rooted in my faith. And so that is that's what keeps me grounded. I surround myself with people who also keep me humble and keep me honest. And then in terms of climbing the corporate ladder, I actually don't see myself as climbing the corporate ladder because I don't have aspirations for like, I don't want to be vice president, sis. Like, I'm not trying to take over global, like I am not climbing the corporate ladder. But in terms of like aspirations, in terms of the goals that I have on my vision board, it says raise others up and you will rise. And so that is for me something that I believe in, that no matter what capacity that I'm in, now I've entered into this leadership role with the CABJ, but entering into that role was about raising others up. And so as I help others rise, then I will rise too, but I don't focus on my own ascent. And so for me, that's become just very fulfilling, helping others and watching them get to where they want to be. Don't let the corporate culture dictate who you are. Know who you are when you walk in the door.
Yes, perfect. So another question that people asked, so more on working with teams and partnership. What are your thoughts on growing and building a strong Black community through partnerships?
I think we need more partnership in the Black community personally. So, so I would say, network as much as you can within the community. That's actually something that we're doing right now with the CABJ. We're trying to, for anybody who's listening, we're really feeling like we need to do some work around mental health and create workshops and seminars for our people. And so, so work as much as you can within the community, network as much as you can within the community, and build partnerships. Make sure though you're both on the same page as you're building this partnership. What do you want to get out of it? Make sure that for both of you there is a win-win. It can't just be, well, we're both Black, so let's work together. There has to be alignment in the vision, alignment in the purpose, alignment in the communities that you're reaching out to. So I'd say, seek alignment, but as much as we can, we really need to build partnerships within our own community.
Yeah, we really do, because there is so much talent within the Black community, and we've known that it's always been harder for us to get it started and get it off the ground because there's not that much funding, and it's not easy to go ask for funding because the people you're asking sometimes are often people who are grumpy and they don't like you, and that's already a problem. But in Vancouver, I literally struggled with this, and I think I actually said that to you the first time we connected over Black Women Connect. I was like, I'm no one to go into a new country and say, oh yeah, where are all my brothers and my sisters? But for me, I definitely noticed. I was like, are there many? Like, are there even any in Vancouver? Whereas in Toronto, I was like, oh, that place is buzzing. In Montreal, it's the opposite. It's the same. So it's so hard when we don't know how to find each other. And like, Nadia said, networking is so vital. And for me, I love that part, because if you get a chance to network, please do so, because that's where you truly find people that would be your partner with true intent, with the purest form of like, I want to help you. Their actual intention is to help someone when they meet them. So you get to know people through networking. You get to see how people are. You get to be able to read the room. You get to see from their body language, the tone, what they're saying by listening, also what they're not saying, all these things. So networking definitely is a big one. And I know right now we can't all do that, but you can still do it virtually. And for me, I've had to learn how to even do that virtually. There's a lot of free things online right now that we can actually be connected to. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a Black community within Vancouver. If you can't find some and you find some across the pond in the US, then also support that, like try to learn and connect online where you can connect, because you never know where your path would bring you guys into. There have been people that I've connected online before I even came to Vancouver. So by the time I came here, it made things super easy because our relationship was already built virtually. I'm talking to someone right now in Toronto that I've never met. And I found her through meeting someone on your Instagram page that was in London, and then said, talk to the girl in Toronto, and we're doing something together in June. So it's kind of like just try to network. And it's also about coming out of your comfort zone. It's not an easy thing to do, but sometimes it is very necessary to get ahead through networking and building community and relationships.
What about you,
Lily? Yeah, I feel like the partnerships, just bouncing off what Nadia was saying about, once you find that alignment and you know that it's a fit, then it's kind of by then it's no brainer. But I think that in today's world, we are fortunate to have tools like Instagram where we can literally type in hashtag Black owner Vancouver, or or we can type in, Black journalists, and we can be easily connected. And for those of us that are often stifled, or we have confidence, we need to build our confidence, or we have issues or problems with approaching, the DM is a beautiful thing, and we're able to just have easier connections than ever before. So I think that before we had sort of the excuse of not knowing how to connect with people or not affording conferences and things of that nature. But now with Black Vancouver Connect, you can easily connect with someone. And, if it's not the person that you connect with is not fit for your business, they're going to know someone else. And so it's always good to just keep those doors open and look for those opportunities that fit for your business. And so, yeah, and go outside of Vancouver. Put it into your business plan. Have key people that you want to work with along the way. I have dreams of people that I want to work with, and they're in there, and they're both local and national and international. And so you just set yourself up so that you can make those connections happen. And Beyonce is on that list.
I love how you just slid that in.
I was like, hold on, Beyonce? Very cash, very cash.
Like your friend.
But I will point out one thing, though, for connecting. If you're very serious about building your business and building your brand, one thing that a lot of people kind of actually overlook is LinkedIn. Very much. Yeah. They overlook LinkedIn so much. For me, my career has definitely successfully rised up through LinkedIn. My job at GSK, they found me through LinkedIn, and they say, hey, we're looking for 3 things: a woman who spoke French, who is a scientist, and who understands the system. And you fit into that criteria. Would you be willing to move from the UK to Belgium? And they're telling me this, and I had to move in a week. With Accenture, they came looking for me, because then you could set your job, you can put into criteria and see what you're looking for, what your needs are, what you want to be recruited from the market. And then you can get your resume to actually have those keywords that employers are looking for. So LinkedIn is another great way to network. You can find people in there that are, whether within the company that you aspire to work in, go and connect with those people and start talking to them. One of my things that I've always prided myself in is I often don't like talking to I would say the bottom person, but like the managers or like the HR. I am very picky. I just try to find who the head is. And I try to find out what they like, how they like to be talked to, how they communicate, their intellect, their interests, who they are as a person, and then find those things and then gather it together and then use that as my way in. And then write and be like, oh, I see that you enjoy this sort of sports. I was just on that part, or I just read that book. Would love to find out what your ideas are about it. And that's the communication, because you already know he loves that kind of thing. And then you open up a barrier and say, oh, I didn't know you read that book too. What was your part about chapter 3 or whatever? So you know what I mean? So sometimes going into places like LinkedIn is such a good place. If you already have one, keep building on that. Keep finding new contacts that you actually admire, or people that you see growing, and going up the ladder with good intent. Reach out to them and don't be afraid to tell them why you're reaching out to them, and just be very intentional with what you want, because people like when people are like that and be very direct. So don't overlook LinkedIn. I definitely recommend it very much to actually use as a networking platform.
That's great. I use LinkedIn too, but I'm not as good as maintaining it. Social
it's a progress.
I already have 6 platforms that I have to keep up with, so LinkedIn ends up being in the back.
I know I'm trying to minimize it, so that's why I'm trying to keep. I've been living in LinkedIn world before I realized Instagram.
I wish I just kept LinkedIn.
So yeah, if you can, we need an extra arm.
Yeah. So the last question someone asked is, what is your leadership style?
Leadership style. So what is your leadership style?
Like within our organizations, or just overall?
Yeah, just overall. I think for me, my leadership style is more collaborative. And the way I kind of approach things, let's all talk it out and then kind of make a decision from there. Some people are more relational, some people are more top down.
Yeah, I think my one is definitely relational and collaboration. Those two things are key for me, because you find out so much more when you actually build a relationship with someone, as an initial conversation, email exchange here and there, phone call, a visual. If you can do a nice meet and greet, or go out for coffee or buy them coffee, those are always good, because then you can get to know somebody on a personal level. And collaboration is good, because then you can also see what that person enjoys, the ideas they come up with, and see if they actually align with yours. And if they don't, then you can try to figure out, Lilian was saying, then you figure out what else, if they don't know, or if you don't want to work together, they will be able to pinpoint you to someone where your values would align with them and say, okay, maybe we won't write for each other, and we can't collaborate, but I know someone that you can collaborate with. So those two things I think have always been truly key for me, relationship and collaboration.
For me, it's collaboration and transformation. Collaboration in that just the work that I do. It means I work across a large team and love working with other organizations to partner on ideas, but transformational in that within my own team, I'm always seeking to empower. And so as I empower them and their ability and their skill, then it's not so much about me and how I lead the team, but it's about me and how I, first of all, lead myself and set that example. And then secondly, how in leading myself, how am I focusing on building up the people around me so that they can be their best selves. So again, it comes back to helping others rise first and foremost.
I am definitely collaborative. What I would summarize mine to be is, if you watched The Cosby Show, I pretty much model my behavior after Claire Huxtable. And the reason why I say that is because she approaches things with a different kind of love. It's a little bit tough, but it's also just doused in a nurturing sort of style. And so when I'm working with my team, I often want to understand what their expectations are of me. And I also want to know what kind of leadership they're looking for. So I'll sometimes say to them, do you like Claire Huxtable or do you like Rainbow from Blackish? What kind of mother do you like in your life? And they'll say, I like the tough love. I'm a little bit more leaning towards that. And so I'll know how to deal with that particular person. or, you know, I can be working with someone who's, you know, just very emotional, and I know that working with that person, I have to switch up my style. And so I love collaboration, but I also am a huge believer in understanding all expectations in a group. So for me, if it's about collaboration and if it's about my leadership style, setting an example, I want to know, okay, well, what example is actually going to be okay? Like, what will actually fit your expectations? And so, yeah, expectations is my biggest thing when it comes to my leadership style, is just being transparent about what it is that I'm going to bring to the table and understanding what the team's going to bring too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that I had to learn too, of asking, because like you said, some people have different approaches on how they will receive things. So if you're too relational with someone, they won't receive that as anything that's not beneficial for their growth. And so I've had to just same thing, ask people, what do you expect of me as you're going to grow in your position? So it's kind of one of those uncomfortable situations, because if you aren't a person that's more top-down leadership, then trying to change that in your mind too, of being like, okay, I'll just have to always give instructions, and that's the only way this person will grow too, because that's a benefit for me and my team to be able to continue growing, versus trying to make it more relational. So yeah, each person just responds differently, but then sometimes as a whole, it gets harder when so many different personalities and so many different people won't respond that way. So it's also navigating those things of trying to figure out what that looks like too, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the last question, but if you guys had final words you wanted to say.
Final thoughts. Oh my gosh, on this whole conversation. Personally, I would just say you carry more power than you know. So tap into that power daily. Create space for yourself. If you don't have a network, build one. This is a great network. So utilize it, and my DMs, I don't think my DMs are open, but I'm here. So always feel free to to reach out if you need help or have a question. Just don't ever feel like, sometimes as Black women we feel like, we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We got to do this. We're all alone. I would just say do not feel that pressure. Do not put that pressure on yourself. As Lilian said, you have to show compassion to yourself first. So practice that compassion, practice that self-love, and make sure that you are taking care of, the matters of your own heart first, before you can pour out into others. But just remember, you've got sisters here, and I'm always happy to help.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up so much. Don't feel like you need to have a plan B. Just have a contingency plan. Approach things a little differently, and keep dreaming. I mean, I feel like ambition is the greatest fuel for getting anything started. And once you have that kickstart, once you're going, then figure out what else is going to fuel that, whether it's, a stranger that's just such a big fan of your product, or someone who has been rooting for you since day one. But just believe in yourself. It sounds so cliche, but it's really the only way that you're going to get past the start mark, is just truly believing in exactly what you're doing, to the point where it's like it's a language for you, and the way that you speak it is fluent, and you feel good about it. So just believe in yourself, ask for help, connect with everyone in this network, because it's beautiful and it exists and it's here for you, and appreciate it and love it, and just keep going. That's it. Just keep going.
Yeah, I think for, just to add to all the great points that you guys have just shared, is don't be afraid to be grateful. Like, that's something that we need to also add into our own lives. Like, you don't have to journal it if you're not someone who journals, but sometimes it's such a good and empowering thing to just say it out loud, what you're grateful for. And it could even be little things that you've achieved in the day. Like today I said I was going to do my laundry, or take the kids out for a walk, or spend some time finishing my actual schoolwork, or writing that plan for my business. And you did a page, or you did something, to that task. Be grateful for that and let that be enough. And on top of that, know that, never forget that you have worth, never forget that you have worth, because we're all worthy, we're all valuable, we're very unique, and who we are, the world needs to see that. And one thing I always used to tell the kids that I used to coach is this: we all matter simply because we exist. And whether or not you feel seen in this world, just always remember that someone is here, someone is rooting for you, someone that you've met is still thinking of you and still wanting you to be successful. But like Lilian put it in a beautiful way, have faith in yourself, have faith in what your potential is, have faith in your purpose for this world, and know and use that to actually keep taking you to the next step and to the next step and to the next step, while you actually learn how to get out of your comfort zone. And this group, there's so many incredible talents that are in here, so you can pull on that. You have a true sisterhood, so don't be afraid to reach out to people and actually ask them for help if you need it. And just bear with people, show people grace, because everybody's also trying to figure out their own lives. So don't take the first no, or the first let's schedule something in, as the ultimate answer. We can't be so quick to actually judge things. Just take a breath and actually examine the situation and see where it's coming from. So, but you have a true sisterhood. Don't forget that part, and allow all this stuff to actually take space. So remember who you are and keep building on it every day. It's not something you have to be perfect in, but you will get there. And that's the whole point of growing and evolving. So use the help that is here, and just keep, remembering that you guys are incredible. You're awesome. Just say it all the time. And you trust me, you become awesome. Just say it. Just be like, oh, I'm awesome today. Efe is awesome. So yeah, sell yourself, talk yourself up all the time. You got to do it, because who else? You can't pay someone to do it. It won't feel good. Trust me. But just get into the habit of reminding yourself just how incredible you are, just how beautiful you are, just how talented you are. It's all these sweet little words that you can actually say to yourself that just makes you whole. And we don't do it as much as often. So my challenge for you is to actually start that before you go to bed. Remind yourself one perfect reason of why you're awesome and why you're great. And just say it to yourself, and then enjoy your lovely, nice nap, because you deserve it. You deserve to hear from your own mouth just how incredibly you've been created. So yeah, let's get into the habit of doing that, and not waiting on other people to compliment us, but complimenting ourselves and our abilities and our talents. And we got this. You guys are awesome. So yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you. I'm really grateful for
us.
making the connections that I have had with you. I know, Lilian, I haven't met you in person yet, but I look forward to meeting you.
Yes.
When things die down and we can actually finally have events in person. I really struggled trying to make this virtual event, because I was trying to prolong it for so long, because I'm I don't want to do it. Why is this virtual? And Effie was are we gonna do it live? And I was I guess we can. So thank you for pushing me. I think I don't know if I would have done it because I so would rather in-person events. But I'm very grateful for all your wisdom, everything that you've shared. Please, like they said, reach out to them. If you have any questions, check out their social media. We've tagged them in everything. So they are more than willing to answer any questions that you have, or if you want to make more connections. And so I feel with things like this, for hopefully when it becomes more in person, we want to do more networking events where people can know where they can actually talk with people, connect with them, and just have more deeper, meaningful relationships amongst us Black women in Vancouver, because there are many of us. We just have to come together collectively. And I just think it's always so beautiful when we have spaces like this that we can come together and do that. So for anybody else, make sure to check out our Instagram and our website, because we are starting a resource page. I know some of you have been asking questions within the chat of different resources and things like that. So if you know resources or people that have different businesses or things like that, please email it to us so that we can start making our resource page, and everything will be more available for you. And the second thing is that we're starting our podcast soon, so stay tuned for that, because we're going to do that next. month. So that's something to look forward to. And we'll just be able to have more of these conversations on a different platform. So that allows us to have more creative outlets and for people to hear it more, and people that may be friends of friends that can't come to Black Women Connect events, but want to know what we do. They'll be able to have that to also hear us out. So once again, thank you so much for everything. Thank you for everyone that's been chatting in there. And I hope to see everyone soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you so much. And also, you can find out more about Black Women Connect Vancouver, because her episode is dropping tomorrow on my podcast, the 12 a.m. So it'll be ready for you guys when you wake up. So if you want to find out more about this amazing community, come find out about the chat that we have together, because it is good. And we're ending season 1 with a beautiful, beautiful voice. So, and the founder of this group. So yeah, definitely go show her some love for sure and find out what she's about, because I love rehearing everything. So thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a beautiful evening.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.